The biting wind howled through the barren plains, carrying with it the cold that seemed to seep into every bone. Jack tightened his worn leather coat around his frame. The flickering light from his small cabin window, the only warmth in the endless winter night. The ranch had been his refuge for years, a place where loneliness was a companion he knew well. But tonight, that solitude was broken. A faint, desperate sound reached his ears, the soft but urgent cry of a child struggling through the deep snow. Jack's hand instinctively moved to the rifle by his door, but he hesitated. Something in that cry wasn't danger. It was a plea. He stepped outside, the snow crunching beneath his boots. There, barely visible through the swirling white, was a boy. His clothes were ragged, face pale and streaked with dirt, eyes wide with fear. "Please, sir," the boy called out, voice trembling. "She's my mama. She can't walk anymore." Jack's gaze followed the boy's pointing hand to a figure slumped just beyond the trees. A woman, weak and barely moving, covered in a thin, threadbare shawl, half buried in snow. Without thinking, Jack moved toward them, heart pounding. The harshness of the frontier didn't usually leave room for softness, but he couldn't turn away from this. "Come on," he said gruffly, kneeling beside the boy. "Help me get her inside." Together, they lifted the woman with care. Her skin was cold, her breath shallow. Jack's eyes met the boy's, a silent understanding passing between them. This was no ordinary visitor. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled and spit, casting warm orange shadows on the rough wooden walls. Jack set the woman down gently by the hearth and fetched a blanket, wrapping her tightly. The boy watched, clutching his mother's hand, his eyes pleading for hope. Jack crouched beside them. "What's your name, boy?" "Tommy," the child whispered. "And your mama?" "Mary," the boy replied, voice breaking. Jack nodded slowly. "We'll get you both through this night. No promises beyond that." But deep inside, something stirred, a flicker of something long buried in the cold corners of his heart. For the first time in years, the silence of his cabin felt heavy with possibility. As the snowstorm raged outside, Jack tended the fire and the fragile family before him. A silent promise lingered in the air. Whatever came next, he would not let them face it alone. The fire crackled softly in the cabin, its warmth a fragile shield against the bitter winter night outside. Jack sat close to Mary, who rested on a pile of worn blankets, her pale cheeks slowly flushing from the heat. Tommy curled up beside her, his small hand never leaving hers. Jack wiped the sweat from his brow and glanced at the boy. "You two must have been out there long." Tommy nodded, eyes wide and tired. "We were running from someone. Mama says they're coming." Jack's jaw tightened. The frontier was no place for innocent families. Danger often rode on the wind, and tonight it was close. Mary's voice was barely above a whisper as she looked up at Jack, her eyes shadowed with fear and exhaustion. "I didn't want to bring him here, but I had no choice. They're after us." Jack's gaze softened, but he kept his voice steady. "Who's after you?" She hesitated, then whispered, "A man I thought I'd left behind. He's dangerous." Tommy squeezed her hand tighter, and Jack felt the weight of their fear like a stone in his chest. "You're safe here," Jack said firmly, though the unease in his gut told him otherwise. "I'll make sure no one gets through my door tonight." As Jack fetched water and simple herbs he kept for wounds, Mary's story began to unfold. She spoke of a life once full of hope, a husband taken too soon by the cruel hand of fate, a desperate flight from a past filled with threats and heartbreak. She was running not just from a man, but from the ghosts that haunted her. Jack listened in silence, feeling an unfamiliar pull toward this woman who bore her pain with quiet strength. He was a man built for solitude, but something about Mary, her resilience, her gentle defiance, cracked open the walls he'd built around his heart. Tommy, sensing the change, looked up at Jack and whispered, "Do you think maybe she can stay?" Jack caught Mary's gaze and saw a flicker of hope there, fragile but real. Outside, the wind howled louder and distant echoes of footsteps brushed the edge of the clearing. The threat wasn't far. Jack stood, placing a steady hand on Tommy's shoulder. "I won't let anything happen to you. Not while I'm here." Mary's eyes glistened with tears she refused to shed. "Thank you, Jack." The night deepened, wrapped in firelight and unspoken promises. A slow-burning connection kindled between two souls hardened by life, both longing for a second chance, even as danger crept ever closer. Days passed in the small cabin tucked against the unforgiving frontier. The snow outside piled higher, turning the world into a silent white prison. But inside, the fire burned bright, a beacon of warmth and fragile hope. Jack found himself watching Mary in ways he hadn't expected. Each slow breath she took, each tired smile she offered, chipped away at his long-held solitude. Her strength was quiet but fierce, and Tommy's laughter, soft and rare, breathed life into the cold walls around them. Mornings were spent gathering firewood and tending to the small garden Jack had managed to coax from a frozen earth. Mary, though still weak, insisted on helping, her spirit refusing to break. One afternoon, as Jack repaired a broken chair, Mary approached him with a shy smile. "You're different than I imagined," she said softly. Jack wiped sweat from his brow and glanced at her. "Different how? You're not like the others who passed through. You care." Her words lingered, and for a moment, the rugged cowboy felt a warmth beyond the fire's reach. But just as he was about to answer, Tommy's sudden voice cut through the quiet. "Dad, my real dad, he's not the man they say." Jack froze, the hammer slipping from his hand. "What do you mean, Tommy?" The boy looked down, twisting a thread on his sleeve. "He wasn't bad like they say. He tried to protect us, but the man after us, he blamed my dad for something he didn't do." Mary's eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. "It's the truth, Jack. I left to keep Tommy safe, but he never stopped fighting for us." Jack clenched his jaw, anger and helplessness rising inside him. The past they fled was tangled with lies and danger, and it was closing in fast. That night, the wind carried whispers outside the cabin, a reminder that the stranger was near. Jack lay awake, thoughts racing. Protecting Mary and Tommy meant more than just guarding his land. It meant fighting ghosts he never wanted to face. But beneath the weight of it all, something else grew, a bond deeper than friendship, the slow unfurling of love that neither dared to speak aloud. As dawn broke over the snow-covered plains, Jack made a silent vow. No matter the cost, he would stand between them and the darkness chasing their lives. The storm had come without warning, fierce and unrelenting. Wind tore at the cabin's wooden walls, snow slamming against the windows like desperate fists. Outside, the world was a blur of white, a frozen tempest that swallowed all sound. Inside, Jack stood by the door, rifle in hand, eyes sharp and heart pounding. Mary sat close to the fire, clutching Tommy to her chest, her face pale but resolute. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows, making the cabin feel smaller, more vulnerable. Then, a sudden knock shattered the fragile silence. Sharp, demanding. Jack's breath caught. His grip tightened on the rifle as the door creaked open against the storm. A tall figure stepped inside, cloaked and masked by the swirling snow, the man from Mary's past. His eyes burned with cold fury as he spoke, voice like a low growl. "Thought you could hide from me forever?" Jack stepped forward, positioning himself between the stranger and the family. "You're done chasing ghosts. Leave now." The tension cracked like thunder. Words gave way to harsh shouts, and then the gunfire, the wild, dangerous dance of survival. Amid the chaos, Mary's voice rang out, fierce and desperate. "Jack, watch out." In the flurry, Tommy scrambled behind the hearth, tears streaming down his face. But then, something unexpected happened. The boy stood firm, revealing a secret he had kept hidden, a small revolver tucked beneath his coat. Jack's eyes widened. "Where did you get that?" Tommy's jaw set. "Dad left it with me. Said to protect Mama no matter what." The stranger hesitated, calculating. In that moment, Jack and Mary's eyes met, raw, unspoken feelings crashing like waves between them. Fear mixed with something tender, a silent promise not to lose each other now. With steady hands, Jack and Tommy faced a danger together, a family forged in fire and snow. When the last shot echoed and silence returned, the storm outside had begun to soften. The stranger lay unconscious, his threat ended. For now, Jack knelt beside Mary, brushing a strand of hair from her face. We made it. Her eyes shimmered with tears, not just from relief, but from something deeper. Because of you. Jack's voice was low, rough with emotion. Because of us. The storm had passed, leaving the world outside a glistening blanket of fresh snow. Dawn's soft light spilled through the cabin window, painting everything with a gentle glow that promised new beginnings. Inside, the air was still warm from the fire, but more than that, it was filled with a quiet peace neither Jack nor Mary had known in years. Tommy sat beside the hearth, his small hands busy mending a worn leather glove, his face calm for the first time in what felt like forever. Jack stood by the window, watching the sun rise over the endless plains, his heart full in a way he never thought possible. Mary rested on the bed, her strength returning with each passing hour. When she caught Jack's gaze, a soft smile spread across her lips, a smile that held gratitude, hope, and something more. Jack crossed the room and knelt beside her. His voice was steady but tender. You don't have to be alone anymore. Her eyes shimmered. Neither do you. Tommy looked up, a small grin lighting his face. Does this mean we're family now? Jack pulled them both into a careful embrace, the kind built not just on protection, but on love. We are, he said. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Outside, the prairie stretched endlessly under the clear blue sky, vast, wild, and full of promise. Inside the cabin, a new story was beginning, one of healing, trust, and a love that had grown where it was least expected. Jack whispered as he held Mary's hand. We found our home right here, and for the first time in a long time, the silence was no longer empty. It was filled with laughter, warmth, and the steady heartbeat of family. The cabin stood quiet now, bathed in the golden light of the morning sun filtering through frost-kissed windows. Outside, the snow had melted just enough to reveal patches of earth and the first brave shoots of green, promising that life always finds a way, even in the harshest places. Inside, Jack, Mary, and Tommy sat together at the rough wooden table, sharing a simple meal. The food was humble, but the warmth between them was more nourishing than any feast. Jack watched Mary laugh softly at something Tommy said, and felt a swell of something he hadn't allowed himself in years. Hope. The kind that takes root slowly, growing stronger with every shared moment, every quiet glance, every small act of kindness. For so long, Jack had thought his life was meant to be lived alone, that love was a luxury he couldn't afford. The frontier was a place of survival, not softness. But Mary had changed that, not with grand gestures, but with steady courage and a gentle heart. He thought back to that first night, the boy's desperate plea echoing in the cold air. Please, sir, she's my mama. It had shattered his solitude and filled the empty spaces in his life he didn't realize were aching for connection. Mary's journey hadn't been easy. She carried scars no one could see, the loss of a husband, the constant fear of the man who hunted them, and the crushing weight of protecting Tommy alone. Yet in this cabin, with Jack's quiet strength beside her, she had found something she thought was lost forever. Safety and belonging. Jack, Mary said softly, breaking his reverie, I never thought I'd find a place to call home again. But here, with you and Tommy, I do. Jack reached across the table, taking her hand in his callous one. Neither did I. But sometimes life surprises us. Tommy, ever the brave little soul, looked up with a grin. Does this mean you're going to teach me how to ride horses like a real cowboy? Jack chuckled, the sound rich and warm. You bet. You're going to be the best rider out here. As laughter filled the room, a peaceful silence settled over them, the kind that speaks of healing and new beginnings. But the frontier was never without challenges. Jack knew the shadows of the past still lingered, and the land could be unforgiving. Yet with Mary and Tommy beside him, he felt ready to face whatever came next. Later that afternoon, Jack stood outside, the sun warming his face as he looked out over the sprawling plains. The wind was gentler now, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers beneath the pine. He thought about the life he had once led, the lonely rides under endless skies, the night spent listening to nothing but the wind. That life was gone, replaced by something richer, more real. Turning back toward the cabin, Jack felt a quiet determination settle over him. He would protect this family, this fragile new love, with everything he had. Mary's whispered words from that first night stayed with him. They're after us. But now, he wasn't just a lone cowboy facing the wilderness. He was a man with a purpose, to shield those he loved from whatever storms might come. In the weeks that followed, the cabin became more than shelter. It became a home filled with small joys, Tommy's laughter echoing through the rooms, Mary's soft humming as she worked, and Jack's steady presence grounding them all. And love, slow, steady, and sure, blossomed in the cracks of their shared pasts. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky with fiery hues, Mary stood beside Jack on the porch. She leaned into him, her head resting gently on his shoulder. "Thank you," she said simply. Jack wrapped his arm around her. "For what?" "For not turning away. For giving us a chance." He kissed the top of her head. "We found something worth holding on to. I'm not letting go." The stars began to twinkle overhead, ancient witnesses to countless stories of hope and heartache on the frontier. Their story was just beginning. Jack, Mary, and Tommy, a family forged by hardship, bound by love, and ready to face whatever the future held. Because sometimes the greatest journeys start with a simple plea. "Please, sir, she's my mama." And sometimes that plea leads to finding love where you least expect it. Right here, in a small cabin on the wild, endless plains.